If you've got a long prep and you've got multiple shows that like reverse dieting into it is the only way to go, man.
We went through a traditional peak for your show and then pretty much just reversed calories into the mayhem. We got food up relatively high. Scale weight was kind of holding tight, but visually things were improving. When you start filling out more, you start to look leaner. Through like a traditional peak, I might load on something like 800, 900 carbs in a single day. And the fullness sticks around for like maybe a couple days. With this, that was the new baseline. It was just this like fullness, which is awesome.
And we are live. Josh, how are you, brother?
Doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. You go by Josh, you go by Joshua.
So I go by Josh, but anytime I fill something out, I just put my full name.
I go by Robert, and I always introduce myself as Robert, but everybody always calls me Rob. So I always want to make sure I'm clarifying beforehand.
Right on.
You're a 1 week post mayhem now, right?
A couple days. Yeah. A few.
Yeah, I guess that was this past Saturday. It's only Tuesday. So yeah, you're just a couple days, man. You've had quite the prep this season, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. We anticipated to start around first week of April, ended up starting late March just because I was so tired of pushing food. And
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, let's just get into it, even if it means a slightly longer diet. Totally fine with it. So yeah, we just finished it up this Saturday, which that was an experience, to say the least.
So was that the last show for sure officially of the season?
Yeah, yeah.
And how many weeks is that in total?
It's it's 30 something, I think. Yeah.
30 is a long prep, man. My prep in 23 was 33 weeks. And I'm like, damn, I don't know if I would do another 33-week prep. That was a long one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's like so much has happened in that time frame, and even some family members were like, "I feel like you were prepping like when we did, this or that event." And I was like, "Yeah, I was," and this is going on forever. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think it helped taking a very long approach for a multitude of reasons. You know, I always like to give clients more time than we think we need, just because I like to call them buffer weeks, if you will, just because something's going to come up, right? Something, life related that, you didn't account for. It's going to come up, and, having that extra time to deal with it goes a really, really long way.
No, I'm definitely pro longer prep. My first prep ever was 12 weeks long because that's what all the magazines recommended. And I lost 80 pounds in 12 weeks, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, man.
Jeez. How did you, oh man, how did you do that?
I starved myself. This was before keto. This was before I knew what I was doing. I just followed all the magazines, and they all said 12 weeks. And I was like 230, assuming that I would compete at 200, and I stepped on stage at like 151. So it was a lot of muscle loss, a lot of food
Yeah.
deprived, lot of cardio, just totally the wrong way of going about it. So there are better ways to do it for sure. But I want to get some backstory on you, man. So for the listeners, you and I actually competed together in 2023, and then you did my show earlier this year. And then we were talking backstage. I was rushing you to get your urinalysis test up the stairs, and that's when it clicked to me that you and I competed again in 2023. So just peel the curtain back, man. Give the listeners some background on you. How long have you been competing? When did you start competing? What was the motivation there? Like, give me the backstory, brother.
Yeah. So I grew up playing baseball and finished in around high school before college, and decided to study exercise science in college, and just fell in love with lifting. I needed something to fill that competitive outlet, and uh, started competing in 2019. And that was right before entering grad school. And then that was also a 12-week prep. I didn't really have a whole lot to lose. I only had to lose about 10 pounds. I just naturally was always a very skinny kid growing up. And so, yeah, that was easy. If I don't track my food, like, and go out of my way to eat enough, I drop weight like, you know, really, really quick. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, first season was in 2019, won my junior class, and that was that was an experience that was amazing because I had no expectations going into it, and seriously think that shaped just how I viewed the sport and just how I viewed myself, in the sport. So, okay, maybe we might be able to be good at this, or at least above average, and go into off season for through 2020 through the pandemic and competed again in 2021. Um, Placed second in an open class in one of uh, WNBF. It was the Monster Mash in
Mhm.
Massachusetts. Um, and that was really cool because the winner of the overall, gets a pro card, right? And I was only, I guess, 24, 25 at the time. And okay, we might be able to do this. So go into the off season 22 and then the early part of 23 with that goal in mind. Like I really, really want to achieve pro status and picked out that show, Washington State Natural. Um, we diet down for it, and that was a really, really aggressive prep. Um, we just, I took the gaining part a little bit too far, I would say. I had never actually gone through that, that dreamer bulk that people talk about, where you really, really push body weight up. That was kind of the dogma at the time that was making its rounds. Is you got to push your body weight up to build as much muscle as possible. So we start the prep with just too much to lose and not enough time to get it off, and the magnitude of that deficit was just so big that it was just a very stressful prep. And we get to stage. I I was conditioned. I still had strided glutes and everything, but it wasn't anywhere near what I could have brought, and it was nowhere near what I was able to bring this year for every reason possible. It was just a completely opposite end of the spectrum from like every variable that you would think about. Um, so I ended up placing fourth in my class at that show, and your class was massive, right? It was like,
My class was pretty big, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I remember thinking, okay, whoever's going to win this class is going to have a shot at this. And um, go in, we placed fourth, saw the overall. You went up against the guy who won my class, and then that other guy was just massive. And I was like, man, I really hope this guy gets it because it's just you inside out, man. um, so I was pretty upset about that placing. Now, granted, I
Mhm.
always tell my athletes, you can't control placings to a degree beyond who shows up and what you bring, right? Um, but I knew that so much could have been better. So I basically continued to diet, I guess. Not for fat loss. We began a reverse where we followed, I guess, what would be considered a textbook reverse, where we just slowly increased food up. And funny enough, my look actually continued to improve into
Mhm.
the first, 8 weeks into the improvement season. You get up to about like 3,600 calories, and I'm actually leaner than I was in October of that year. So, okay, we just continue to follow that approach and just continue training, and basically within the constraints that was given, gave everything I had and left no stone unturned. And then finally, food just got so high because the reverse was so controlled that it was like that was the rate limiter in my off season, with just my ability to actually stomach the food, not
Mhm.
necessarily like the body composition necessitating a diet. So it was okay. We got to take a break from food and drop things down for a little bit, and then we'll bring it back up, and then after that we'll start the prep. Um, so we did that, and the starting point for this prep was way, way, way leaner. Um, Still had like a sartorius. There was one like visible glute line at the start. Like, okay, if you could start at that position, your end point's going to be pretty cool, right? And picked out a couple shows around that end of September timeframe, and I was kind of in a toss up between those few, and ended up choosing yours because I was just looking at how the production value was going to look, how serious the promoters were taking things. I was like, okay, this guy's really got it together. So let's go after this one. And yeah, I was really, really happy with how that one panned out.
I appreciate it, man. I put a lot into that, so I'm glad we were able to do a good show for you, brother. And you looked amazing. So awesome that you got your pro status on my stage.
Yeah, man, it was great venue, really well run. The event was very smooth, and yeah, that's as athletes, we appreciate that, right? You just don't need to be stressing about anything else.
Hmm. So that was your first show of this season, then.
Yeah,
And then did you do another one before the Mayhem, or like in between, or was
I
it
was
just the
I
two
was
shows?
going to. Um, I think there's some interesting like federation rules with, after you turn pro in the WNBF, your next show needs to be a WNBF show, or at least your
Hmm.
next pro show. I'm not exactly sure how it went. That's just what the email said. So I'm like, okay, we'll hold off. I don't want to, run into any issues here. So just put it off until the Mayhem. We'll make the pro debut, and then we'll call it there. So yeah, it was just your show and then the Mayhem this past weekend.
You competed as a pro at the Mayhem,
Mhm.
and then didn't want to do Worlds in a
Yeah,
few more weeks.
I was gassed.
Yeah.
You know how it goes, like, towards the end, there's reoccurring aches and joint issues that might pop up, you know, towards the end, and there was, like, a handful of things that I thought, "Okay, if this progresses much longer, this might limit my training to some capacity," so I'm like, "Okay, let's just get here, get the qualification, solidified, and then we'll just call it."
And what for the listeners? What class category did you do at my show, and what did you do at Mayhem?
So, I did both classic physique and bodybuilding at your show. Won the classic physique, um, placed second in the overall in open bodybuilding, and then at the Mayhem did pro classic and then amateur bodybuilding.
Gotcha. It's interesting because I was looking. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was looking at all the judges' sheets, and I'm pretty sure you beat the guy in classic at my show, and he beat you in the bodybuilding. So like
Mhm.
they rewarded you more for the classic look, I guess, and him more for the open bodybuilding look. But interesting how that kind of pans out. You beat him once, he beat you once, and then you did Awesome and Mayhem too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that was like you said, you just okay, he fits that category, he fits that category just a little bit better. Um, I 100% agreed with it. Um, I think because I got judges' feedback at the Mayhem, and they were like, "Yeah, classics definitely where you'll have the highest ceiling or potential from a competitive standpoint." So yeah, it was interesting though. I think he had like 20 pounds on me, which was
He was big.
yeah,
He was super young too. I mean, some of these guys, man, I'm just blown away like how young they are to
yeah,
have as
dude,
much
he was
size
like
as they do.
22
It's
or
like, man, where does
something.
that come from?
Yeah, yeah. I was
No
backstage, and I
kidding.
was like, "Geez, yeah, this guy's pretty big." And then we connected on social media, and I found out I think he was like 22 or 23 or something like that. Man,
Yeah. 'Cause how old are you now?
so I'm 29.
29. And when is your we're gonna get into some nuts and bolts here of your prep itself, but just out of curiosity, when is your next competitive season, you think?
At the earliest, 2027.
Okay.
I like to have. I know that's when you're going again.
Yeah, that's when I'm going again.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
got my, employee, Greg, who also did my show. He's gonna be prepped in 2020. There's a bunch of us prepped in 2027, man. So I think we need to just all rally together
yeah,
and just publicize the hell out of it, and us all be having the camaraderie alongside each other prepping.
yeah, yeah. It's cool when you have that. Um, I had a good group of guys around me. Some of them in person, a lot of them, through social media. But it's very important to have that. I think, especially if you're doing the same show.
Well, I was watching I guess I was watching the Mayhem, like, on social. And there was some big names on that stage, man. You had Alberto Nunez up there. You had all of them. I mean, you had all the 3DMJ guys up there competing. You were up there. Eddie was up there. I think he won the overall, and I had him on the podcast a few months back, and I mean, he just freaking like he earned it for sure. He dominated, and he was just like dialed in, crisp. He had the lines. I mean, he goes into kind of like this monk mode off season, puts on a bunch of size, and then is able to bring the conditioning come show day. So I'm glad it turned out so well for him.
Yeah, yeah, that dude, being backstage there, and I'm sure you experienced this with Worlds, it's just it you can't explain it to, anybody who's, like, not familiar with the sport because you would look at that and think there's no way that that's natural, but it's like, they passed the same tests that you did, and it's insane. You wouldn't believe it just looking at pictures, and that,
Hmm.
seeing it in person is just something else.
And it's weird too in natural because it's like you see the pictures and they got the perfect position, the perfect lighting, the perfect color, and it looks honestly in my mind more impressive than what you're seeing on like a Mr. Olympia stage. It's just a crisper, sharper physique. But then when you actually go backstage and you're like interacting with them, or if they've got like a jacket on, they're not that massive comparison to like somebody that's on the Olympia stage that's walking around at 300 pounds. It looks like a totally obtainable, natural look. It's just a very impressive look.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's what I found as well. Um, I pretty much train covered up, like, 100% of the time, just because my first prep and this isn't like, an ego issue or anything like that. My first prep, uh, I was pretty close to stage, and I was going in training in a stringer, and you constantly get people, "Oh, are you training for a show?" Yeah, yeah, and you love it, but like when you're deep into prep, you don't want you don't want to get
Mhm.
super irritable with somebody and say something, and yeah, I just don't necessarily want the attention most times. Um, but then I knew things were getting serious because some of the older guys who had competed before, uh, recognized, like, "You're pretty lean right now, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how did you know?" And they're like, your face is, the
Mhm.
cheekbones are giving it away." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." Like, "How many weeks out are you?" I'm like, "9 days."
Yeah.
"Okay, alright." So, yeah, but again, you wouldn't think that, staying covered up, you see it looks very normal, right? And then
Mhm.
when you take off the layers, it's okay, it's on now. Wow, all right, that looks impressive.
Yeah, for sure, man. So what was your starting weight at the beginning of this prep cycle?
So started around 193, 194-ish, depending on the day.
And what was you said you were doing around 3,600 calories at that point?
Yeah, yeah. Our first cut in calories brought me down to about 3,000 on non-training days and about, like, 33 on, uh, training days. Maybe it was 2,900 on rest.
And then what was your stage weight this past weekend?
This past weekend was around 178. That was pre-peak. So or that was obviously post-peak, sorry. Pre-peak was I saw a low of 174. 175 was the average on peak week. So we went through a traditional peak for your show and then pretty much just reversed calories into the mayhem, which was very interesting because like a true peak really wasn't needed at that point.
Mhm.
Um, we got food up relatively high. Scale weight was kind of holding tight, but visually things were improving, which was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
What was your stage weight at my show then? Because there's about 2 months in between roughly,
Yeah.
month
So
and a
it
half.
was about 177. So it was
Okay.
only slightly lighter.
So you pretty much lost a solid 20 pounds throughout the course of the prep roughly.
Yeah.
What were your because you're, doing the reverse that from mine to this one, what was the depth of your calories, like, at your lowest, I guess, going into my show?
So it really wasn't too bad. Um, I hit it's about 1,900 on rest days and about 2,500 on training days. Um,
Nice.
and then when we reversed up, we made, what was it, I guess it's about 100 carb difference on training
Mhm.
days at least. I pretty much track macros, so, like, doing the math in my
Yeah.
head. Um, yeah, so it was at least about 500, 600 calorie difference, over that 6-week time frame. It's what we ended at, I should say.
If you've got a long prep and you've got multiple shows, if they're spread out like 4 weeks or more, reverse dieting, if you're dialed in enough at the onset, like reverse dieting into it is the only way to go, man. Like I've done that a few times and like there's this Goldilocks phase when you're super peeled, when you're coming out of that reverse diet wise, where your body just soaks it all up and doesn't put any of it towards adipose tissue. And you just keep looking better and better. And the weight keeps dropping, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, because when you start filling out more, uh, you start to look leaner. And,
Hmm.
uh, it was weird, like, the fullness was, like, a different type of fullness. I don't know really how to explain it, but when I go through, like, a traditional peak, I might load on something like 800, 900 carbs in a single day, and the fullness sticks around for, like, maybe a couple days. By the time I'm back, if I've traveled out of state, it's gone. Whereas with this, it was like very like that was the new baseline. It was just this like fullness, and it was because
Hmm.
several weeks of they say 350 grams of carbs, and yeah, it's just not much change is required at that point when you get to peak week, which is awesome.
That's what you want. Yeah, you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like when I did my season in 23, the best look I brought was on that show that you and I did, the Washington State Natural. I feel like my goal for the whole season was just to become the leanest man alive. And I did that by worlds, but I looked way more flat and just depleted at worlds. I was leaner, but I didn't look near as good. I don't remember what the weight was. I was probably like 155, I think, at worlds, but I looked better when I was like 158, 160 at the Washington State Natural, because it's like at the end of the day, the weight doesn't even really matter. It's all about how you're able to showcase it. And in bodybuilding, it's all about how you're able to do that. I mean, nobody's going up there on stage with calipers or anything, so it doesn't really matter how lean you are.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really important too because I think sometimes when you start to push too far into the, I gotta chase conditioning, you start to sacrifice other areas of the look. And I think we were knocking on the door of that. And that's kind of what prompted us to bring food up. So
Hmm.
I noticed after your show, I wanted to improve and like, okay, let's see how far we can take this. And I saw a couple pounds come off, which at that point, that's a big deal, right? Uh, and I didn't really see much improvement in the look visually, which you would think, proportionally, that's a big drop, being stage condition. So, I'm like, all right, I think this is the point where if we continue to push this much further, I'm going to start potentially flattening out to the point where like I can't get this back and I might lose a lot of shape in my upper half at
Hmm.
least. Um, so yeah, we just brought things up at that point. Like, okay, next prep, obviously we aim for more and more conditioning, but I think we kind of hit that wall at that point.
Well, you look great, man. I mean, you look great at my show. You look great at the pictures I saw of the mayhem. Before I put the dots together and realized you were who you were, I was watching you backstage like I was watching everybody. I could just tell you were in the zone, man. You
Oh
had the
yeah.
game face on. You were like not looking at anybody because you didn't want to acknowledge anybody. You just want to like stay focused. And I'm like, yeah, he's about to get out there and kill it. And you
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah. It's show day is different, man. It's like all the work, kind of comes together. It's like, all right, it's on now.
Mhm. Totally, man. What did you do with your macros? Because like, I do a very different approach than most with the ketogenic style, but what did you do with your macros throughout?
In terms of like how we adjusted them, or like
Yeah, I mean, did you keep your protein relatively constant the whole way through? Did you manipulate that at all? Was it mostly just coming from the carbs?
yeah. So protein was pretty much kept constant. It was roughly about like 250 grams. The reductions pretty much came from fats and carbs. Um, Periodically took refeeds. It was largely like auto regulated based on scale weight, gym performance. Um, but things were pretty linear, I would say, with just, bringing things down over time. Um, my body seems to like that a lot more when I start
Mhm.
introducing a bunch of like rapid shifts day to day. Um, it can actually backfire, at least in my case. Just it's a stressful environment to be in, and my body just doesn't like it. So, yeah, it's just pretty
Yeah.
much a straight shot with some auto-regulated refeeds.
I think going relatively linearly with the macro manipulations and then just keep applying that pressure, it saves people a lot of heartache because they start overcomplicating things and they overanalyze things and they make unnecessary manipulations and they don't have a baseline to adjust from. They just kind of shooting in the dark at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because when you're changing things, like, especially on peak week, it's like you need to know, okay, where are we bringing things up from, right? We need our baseline, and, where that is, the day before, and, yeah, it makes a big difference for sure.
hmm What did your training change at all, or was it mostly just cardio manipulations as far as that's concerned?
So cardio stuff, I pretty much just did steps, which was drastically different from my 23 prep. Um, training, I try to keep it as similar as I could throughout the entire prep. Um, volume did need to come down just a little bit on some exercises just to accommodate recovery. That wasn't really until the very, very end. Um, the last third, I brought my rep ranges up just a tad, just because I felt it was easier to control, like, say, a 10 RM versus a 5 RM with, you know, changing leverages and, a body that's not nearly as stable as peak off season, because loads
Mhm.
really weren't dropping at all. Like, it was still progressing for majority of the prep, but it got to the point where if I unracked something wrong and it was like a 5, 6 RM, it's like one, you know, misstep, or you grip the bar wrong. uh any small mistake there could cost you the set. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like, let's play it safe here. If we can get the same out of a slightly lighter weight, that's probably going to be a better approach.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, when I'm going through prep, I try to just keep the training as constant as possible, and I don't typically see a reduction in overall top-end strength that I put into, like, the last, 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll just simply try and hit that weight, but then at a much lower rep count,
Yeah.
and just see how my body responds with it, like deadlifts or squats or something like that. But yeah, I mean, my first prep on a loss was 80 pounds, man. I mean, I literally saw 100 pounds come off my deadlift top end. It's just like, this is not a good way to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah. My first prep, I definitely lost strength. um
Yeah.
I was training a bit differently, though, a lot more volume, more reps in reserve, I would say. The
Mhm.
more recently trained, a lot harder, just closer to
Mhm.
failure on average, and I think that seems to help preserve things, at least in a diet, just because you don't need as many sets. Um, both approaches certainly work. It's just one's probably going to be a better tool for the job in a prep.
Totally. What did you do with your, like, foods throughout the prep? Were you eating every 2, 3 hours, standard chicken, rice, broccoli kinda deal, or how did you manipulate that?
Yeah, I decreased meal frequency pretty quickly, from 6 to 4. It was 6 when food was really, really high. It was just to help split things up so I could actually stomach the meals. But then cut it down to 4, just so each meal could remain like somewhat large uh, per day. So it still felt somewhat normal. Um, what else was I going to say? Yeah, I think minimal changes were made to sources. I think the big one was just rice to potatoes, just to bring volume up. Um,
Yeah.
but really, not a whole lot needed to be changed from that standpoint.
Did you have a big celebratory meal after my show before going into Mayhem, or did you wait until after Mayhem?
I did. I had a nice dinner with my parents. They were there, so that was good. I had a nice
Nice.
bowl of pasta and some chicken. So nothing crazy, but it was definitely a carb heavy meal, which was nice.
Yeah. What'd you do after Mayhem?
I had man, I had the giant pizza.
How
I
much weight were you up the following day from that?
Oh, dude, believe it or not, I was only up 3 pounds.
No, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, yeah, and that was I don't know how many calories. I typically don't really have an issue holding things together.
Yeah,
If I really didn't think about what I wanted, uh, post-show. People were asking like, "Oh, what are you gonna have?" I'm like, "Honestly, I haven't really thought about it." Um, I I like keeping things tight post-show. It just creates for a better runway in the off season.
100%, man. A lot of people, I mean, you and I see it time and time again. People go off the deep end post show, and then it's like, it just does not pan out well. What I found that I'll do is like when I did those 5 shows in 23, I didn't do a celebratory meal until after Worlds. And then I went to a Brazilian steakhouse and I went hog wild there, but I like actually tracked everything. Like I brought a scale in there and I was tracking everything because I was curious to see what would happen. And I think I ate like 7,800 calories, all meat. And then I woke up like a pound lighter, which was just blew my mind. But you obviously can't, where people go wrong is like you can get away with that for one day,
Yeah.
especially if you're not doing a lot of carbs. But like one day turns into two, turns into three. When you get consecutive days of that, like the unnecessary, like they totally bypass that Goldilocks phase and it just all goes to body fat.
Hello, y'all. Robert Sikes, the founder of the Savage Perspective Podcast, the host of the Savage Perspective Podcast. As y'all know, we do not roll ads throughout the podcast. This is not an ad technically, but I'm going to throw it in there just in case. The reason I don't put ads in here is because I don't want y'all to be distracted with minutes and minutes of just irrelevant content for me to make a buck. That's not good for y'all. I don't want to be inauthentic like that. However, I would be remiss if I didn't point y'all towards a great resource. So all of the guests that I bring onto the show are designed to give y'all insight, give you information, give you value that allows you to optimize your health from a ketogenic standpoint. I've built out a resource that takes everything I've learned over the years as a podcast host, as a professional natural bodybuilder, as a coach in the space, and I've compiled all that into a very, very comprehensive system, which also includes a community, a membership community from an accountability standpoint. It's got a ton of resources like a free workout app. It's got a AI that's built out based off of all of my content, so it's not giving you conflicting information. And the program has over 150 videos that breaks down all the details as to how to manipulate your macros, optimize your metabolism, build muscle, lose fat, all the good stuff that y'all are striving to do. And also, since I don't do ads on the podcast, all of the affiliate discount links that I have for various different brands live in this program as well. That literally pays for the cost in and of itself. So if you're interested in doing a deeper dive, actually using these tools and reaching your highest self, check out ketobodybuilding.com.
Oh yeah, because if you're coming off of a peak, like you're fully, loaded up, or at least in my case with glycogen. And then the rest of it's like, it's going right to fat,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So I give myself one day, and then after that, it's like, all right, we're back, and it's just it's how we live, right? And it's usually not
Mm-hmm.
much of a change. It's what we're used to doing anyway. So, um, plus, I feel like if I'm going to coach it, I have to master that phase.
Totally.
You know, if you haven't, like, how are you going to help other people go through it?
100%, man. What was the feedback from both shows this season? Like, what was the pros, cons that the judges were giving you?
Um, the main thing was just staying hard on my legs was posing. Um, so worked on that really, really hard, especially, between shows. Um, in terms of like muscularity, it's pretty much always going to be about bringing up my quad sweep.
Mm-hmm.
um, just because delts and lats are just structurally always going to be a strong point. So just continuing to fill out the X frame. Um, then, aside from that, conditioning was good. Overall muscularity was good. So I was generally happy with the feedback.
Yeah, you look great at my show, man. You look great with the pictures I saw. So like bringing up the quad sweep, that's always something we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, um, the Baba guy that freaking takes the world's like I don't know how he's got so much development and thickness in his leg. Some people just genetically, of course, he obviously trains hard, but like that, I haven't been able to get that yet. So I'm
Oh,
just
dude.
doing squats nonstop.
So I I was at Worlds in 2024 last year. Had some athletes doing it, and I was backstage when that class was out, and I was just standing there, like at the side, and had the
Mhm.
call outs. Um, and it was after they had made first call outs, and then they brought the second call outs out, and they had the guys from first call outs lined up on the side, and I was like right there behind them, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is unreal. Like
Mm.
you would look at that and think, oh, we're at an NPC show or an IFBB show or something like that, something untested. Um, but yeah, that is incredible. I know exactly what you're talking about, though. It's a different type of muscularity.
Yeah, it is wild. Why do you stay natural? I mean, there's been this, especially now, there's like this massive push for the popularity and prevalence of, HRT is not something that society even turns their nose up to anymore. Like it's just the norm, really. So what's kept you in the natural ranks?
Personally, I think I would take it too far if if I crossed over to that side. Um, I think that's kind of just how my personality is. Um,
Mhm.
Anything that I have done in the past, it has to be taken to an extreme. So when I played baseball, it was okay. I want to for the best possible team. I want to play in college, and it was like everything. It was like kind of how bodybuilding is to me right now, but pre college. Um, couldn't I mean even before sports I was kind of a nerd. I was really into video games, and uh had to play that competitively. And it wasn't like I could just sit down and relax and do something like casually or just for leisure. It's like no, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this like to the fullest extreme. And so I know that if I went down that route, I think I would like the results too much, and I would want to ascend the ranks more and more and more, see how far I could take it competitively. And I know, you push it just a little bit too far, and you start running into health issues that it's like you can't undo. And
Yeah.
I couldn't do that with a good conscience. I have nothing against it though. It's a personal choice at the end of the day, and I think um later on, if my competitive days were done and, say testosterone was, below range and TRT was a potential option, like that's something I would potentially consider. But I think those two are very, very different. Like one's kind of therapeutic, one's, obviously performance enhancing in that realm.
Yeah. No, I'm in the same camp, man. We share the same sentiment. I feel like if I was to go that route, then I would just want to push the envelope with everything, and then you're obviously sacrificing health for the outcome. And I feel like bodybuilding gets a bad rap, but when you separate the two between natural and enhanced, like natural bodybuilding, no one in like the peak of a competitive stage is going to argue that that is the epitome of health. But like throughout the year, which is what the majority of the time is spent in, like natural bodybuilding is honestly, I think, the healthiest sport one could pursue. I mean, you're eating the right foods, you're focusing on rest, recovery, you're training with progressive overload, you're eliciting enough stimulus to warrant a response, you're mindful of recovery. Like natural bodybuilding is the epitome of what everyone should live as to some extent. Like whatever that looks like for them, like that's gonna be the best needle mover for health and longevity, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I imagine that if you were to take a bunch of competitive natural bodybuilders like in their off season and took blood work, like 99% of them would have really, really, really good results. And
Hmm.
I don't know if you could say that for a lot of other sports. I'm sure you could, generally speaking, the healthiest, best genetics move on, but especially for natural bodybuilding because just the habits that are required, are generally very, very healthy. It's really not until the very end of prep where things, hormones start to take a hit. But the rest of the year, rest of the off season, yeah, it's really, really healthy.
Yeah, totally. With it, there's no moment in a prep where the stars align and things are just perfect. It just doesn't. Life doesn't work out that way. So, did you have any crazy, unforeseen obstacles coming your way throughout this prep, where you're like, "Man, I can't believe this shit is happening to me now," but here we go.
Oh man, I think there's at least one in like every single prep, right? Um, I'm trying to think. There were definitely there were a lot of minor inconveniences, I guess you'd call them. Just things that, if your life's not kind of put together really well, it's going to be, you're going to struggle, right? Um, Not one that would like specifically fit that criteria, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Maybe just dealing with, I don't know, car issues. I
Yeah.
guess, you're on your way to the gym, you've already taken your pre-workout, and you get a flat tire or something like that.
Yeah. It's never fun.
Yeah, I don't know, minor inconveniences, fortunately.
I
Yeah,
feel like when you're in a prep though, like you're in a whole nother level of just focused and disciplined where anything that comes in you that's outside of that is certainly an inconvenience, but like you have the ability to make it work because like you're committed to a task and like failure is not an option. So no matter what happens, you're going to get through whatever comes your way.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, I For me, at least, it's caused, so many, like, life improvements. It adds to my life so much more than, um, the people who are outside of the sport could really imagine, because, you often hear about, "Oh, I'm going on a diet," like it's a super restrictive thing. Um, but things like just work, organization, productivity, at least for the first half of prep, take a massive step forward. Um,
Hmm.
just because you have everything else like scheduled perfectly. And let's be honest, like prep will expose your inefficiencies. And if there's anything that's like out of line, that's, not quite as efficient as it could be, at some point the prep's going to expose that. Right.
Hmm.
And that's one thing I absolutely love about it, because it gives you at least a handful of things to work on in the off season. They're kind of outside of bodybuilding.
Yeah. I mean, it transcends the sport and bleeds into every other area of life, oftentimes for the positive. Having a supportive inner circle is key though. I don't know if are you married, get a girlfriend, anything like that?
No, single still.
Single? Yeah, I've heard pros and cons both ways. I'm lucky my wife like winds up meal prepping half the time for me, which is nice. And she's super supportive, but like I've coached clients that didn't have a supportive spouse or significant other, and that just seems like a recipe for disaster in the prep for sure.
Yeah. Um, some guys at my gym I know have prepped like with their significant other, girlfriend, and I'm like, okay, that would be cool. I could also see some days where that might not be so cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never prepped with my wife simultaneously. I don't know if that'd be a good thing or not, man. That could be opening up a can of worms.
especially that the last couple months. Yeah, I can
Hmm.
see that. Um, yeah,
So where you at in college right now? So I just saw
yeah.
something
So
on your
I've
social. You
already
submitted a
graduated.
manuscript.
Yeah, yeah. So I already graduated in 2020. I finished my
Okay.
master's in exercise science. Um, what else did you say?
So you said you got your master's in exercise science 2020, and then I saw something you had posted on your social, something you had written a manuscript that had gotten published, or what was the status on that?
Yeah, yeah. So that was like my master's project that I stayed around post grad to continue collecting. Um, we just received a letter of acceptance from the journal yesterday. It's on
Nice.
Myo-Reps. Um, we started data collection for this like ages ago, and finally finished it. We're dealing with a lot of restrictions, like with the pandemic, just how many people we could have in our lab. Um, and so it was a really, really cool project. Basically, I mean, you've probably heard people train with Myo-Reps before,
Hmm.
but there hadn't been like any formal studies on it. There'd been studies on like rest pause, studies on drop sets, other intensity techniques, but it hadn't been like validated in the research. Um, so we finally did that for, an 8-week training block. It took, subjects through either a traditional training program or a program that used exclusively Myo-Reps. And what we found was basically, the same exact response, at least in terms of the strength that they gained and the muscle that they gained. But there was a 30% reduction in the total volume that was used in the Myo-Rep condition. So just the sets times reps times load, not the number of sets, if that makes sense. So like
Mm-hmm.
they were performing less total reps, but they were getting the same stimulus. And it was like they were in and out in far less time. Um, so we followed that study up with a more acute portion that was basically like a single session. It was like a couple sessions. But we hooked up a velocity device to the bar for each
Mm-hmm.
subject. And we looked at, okay, like what's happening with bar speed during these reps, right? Because if you think about the Myo-Reps protocol, it's very similar to rest pause. That you take a straight set to failure or very close to it, unrack it with like short rest, and then you perform another mini set, right? Close to failure or to failure, rack it, unrack under short rest. You repeat that process. So we hooked up this velocity device to the bar and had subjects either perform the same traditional, 3 sets of 6 to 12 reps or, the Myo-Reps protocol. And what we found was, this was pretty interesting. Um, so under a certain velocity threshold, there was the same number of reps performed. So um, obviously velocity is going to drop as you get closer to failure, right? That last rep's really, really slow, right? So it was past a certain point, we had to decide where that was. But we identified that there were a similar number of slow repetitions, or if I guess it kind of points towards that effective reps idea. But it makes you kind of wonder, like, okay, how many of these reps are actually, contributing to the muscle growth stimulus, and how many of these reps are we kind of, wasting our time with? Um, so yeah, again, we took that acute finding and applied it to the chronic findings. Said, okay, maybe this is why we saw what we saw, because you know the Myo-Rep condition theoretically, or I guess on paper, looks like they performed a lot less work, but they got the same
Mm-hmm.
results. So like trying to figure out why that might be. And so basically what the two groups had in common was they had a similar amount of reps within a sufficient proximity to failure. And that's kind of the direction that we ran with the paper.
So basically, drawing a more distinct line in the sand as to where the junk volume starts and is no longer necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was interesting. And we had been working on this for ages and ages and ages. And we finally finished the writing process, got it submitted, and just accepted. So I'm really, really excited for it to make the rounds and get out there.
You've had a hell of a year, man. My show, Mayhem, and then literally the next day after, get this approved. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, dude. It's been a long time coming for both of these. I've been, chasing down that card for years, and we've been working on this project for a while, and it all kind of came together at the same time.
Mm-hmm. When it rains, it pours. What do you think? Because like Pro Card is like this ever elusive thing that people that don't have one, put on a pedestal and seek out. And then when you have one, it's like, okay, what does this mean exactly? So now that you have one, what does it mean for you?
Oh man. So this was a huge breakthrough for me personally because um like I said, like when I did something, just anything, a hobby, or I had to take it to an extreme. And it would just it would completely occupy my mind, and I would put everything I had into that one thing. And many times it I wouldn't see the fruits of that completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was one of the first times I would say where it really, really, really paid off and it really worked out. And so I still have the card right there. So when I see it, it's like, yeah, okay. You continue working hard enough, like no matter what it is, it's going to happen eventually. And yeah, it's that I would say that's what it means.
That's the beautiful thing about bodybuilding, man. Like when I love that it's an individual sport and if you're cutting corners or slacking, but when you don't and you can be 100% confident in the fact that you gave it your all, like what you have to show for that is nothing short of amazing. And then you just like this switch gets flipped and you're like, okay,
I think we lost
if I
you.
want to achieve X, I need to put in this level of output. And then when I do, I'm practically guaranteed to get what I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. Um, I don't really get super nervous on show day, and I think that's why, because I used to have really, really bad performance anxiety in any form of competition. But for bodybuilding, it's been very different. As soon as we step out on stage, I don't feel any anxiety like whatsoever, and I think it's just because you know, uh, you remind yourself you're backstage, and it's like you belong with these people because you've given everything that you've had, and you left no stone unturned. And so when you get out there, finally, it's like, all right, it's just time to show off the work. I know I've done everything. So
hmm And then, regardless of the placing, I mean, you can be at peace with it. Like the worst thing is to think that you cut corners and you didn't give it your all. But like if you gave it your all, and you can know that with supreme confidence, then really and truly, I mean, like the placing is somewhat irrelevant because you couldn't have done anything else.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You do that long enough, it's a winning look somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And you can only control that and who shows up. It's kind of beyond your control. But again, you do that for long enough, eventually, it will result in the placing that you want.
hmm So you're a coach yourself.
Yeah.
Did you coach yourself through this season, or did you have somebody working with you?
So my coach, my business partner, Christopher Barakat, we
Mm.
coached together at Beyond Bodybuilding. So we've
Nice.
been working together since 2019. Um, we were training partners. Also, went to U Tampa and got our masters. We have the same degree, so it's kind of where it started for us.
He just had like an injury or something, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so he started the prep with a broken foot, and then ended the prep with he ended up having an aneurysm, um,
Mm.
small one, but still, nonetheless, it's still a lot to deal with. Um,
Yeah. Was he planning on doing Mayhem? Was that his show and insight of the prep?
yeah, so that was going to be his last show as well. So we were planning on doing it together, um, but God had other plans.
Man, I hate that for him. He's doing all right now, though.
Yeah, yeah, he's doing a lot better now, which is great.
Good,
Yeah, he's
good.
super resilient person.
He
I have
is.
to say that.
Yeah, he's been. I mean, it's cool talking with people that have been in the natural bodybuilding space for a long time, man. Like it's just any space in general. Like I respect people that have been, speaking a similar message and consistent in that messaging from the get go. And I see people come and go in my nutrition space all the time, and I just really respect people that have been, through the ringer and continue to be, you know, planting their flag in the ground and say, like, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. And I'm learning a bunch throughout the process, but like my messaging isn't doing a full 180 every 6 months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's because it shouldn't, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
what works is what works, right? And if you have the right viewpoint of like why things work and why some things don't work, it's principles over methods, right?
Totally.
Um, and so yeah, I think if you have a very sound approach to things, you probably not going to be flip flopping. It's usually those people who lie on the one extreme or the other.
100%. So are you in Tampa now?
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Tampa this week, man. I'm flying out on Friday. I'm speaking at a conference on Saturday. Are you anywhere close to MI40?
Oh yeah, that's it's about 20 minutes from me.
That's where I'm going to be training. I'm staying at some Airbnb like 15 minutes from there, so I'm going to be training there while I'm in town.
Yeah.
Where do you normally train at?
So I usually train at Metroflex.
Okay.
It's probably about, depending on where you're staying, probably about 25 minutes from where.
Is it like the old school Metroflex?
So the people who started the Metroflex gym in Texas came out here and started a gym. So it's a lot of newer equipment, but it's the same owners.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, man, I like going to new gyms while I'm traveling. It's like going to the playground. So I'm not
Yeah.
training in my 40 one day and Metroflex
Yeah,
the
yeah,
next.
yeah. You should, man. Yeah, we got to link up for a session.
100%, brother. 100%. So you've been coaching for how long now then?
So, I guess 6 years. Yeah, 6 years now.
Is it all with bodybuilders exclusively or general population?
It's both. It's gradually moved towards more bodybuilders or competitors, but it's definitely both.
What is your I always like talking to coaches because like there are so many common denominators when it comes to coaching where it's like if people just did this, they would see tremendous benefit. And there's a whole lot of nuance and individualized approaches as well, obviously. But like as a coach, where do you see like the lowest hanging fruit of people just having a massive sticking point that if was resolved, they would get where they're wanting to go?
Oh, man, so I typically cover this like on day one because it's the lowest hanging fruit. I think it's just scheduling your day and
Hmm.
figuring out, okay, when am I waking up? When am I going to bed? And can I keep this consistent day to day? Right. That's like that alone, fixing sleep schedule is going to pay, an infinite amount of progress. And it's, you know, anyone can do that. Right. And then based on that, when are you going to work? Right. Fill in those hours. Right. When are you training? Fill in those hours. When are you having your meals? And then slot that in based on, your schedule, your constraints. That improves adherence so much because oftentimes, I mean, how prep is for us. It's like very, you're eating at the same time most days, and you just know it's just what you do. You get in the habit of doing it, and it becomes kind of mindless. You actually start to get hungry around the same time. You're in this routine, and it's the decision making is just it's very minimal at that point, right? Where I think people find dieting so difficult, it's usually because they're trying to play macro Tetris with
Hmm.
with just different foods. You should have a variety of foods for sure, but um, you know, if you haven't deliberately planned things out, at least on paper, from like a logistics standpoint, you'll find yourself at the end of the day, only 80 grams of protein in, and it's like, well, now, okay, we got this weird ratio that we got to fill, and we got to combine a bunch of random foods to
Yeah.
get this right, and it's like, there's no way that it wouldn't be better if you split this up just a little bit more evenly throughout the day.
Totally agree, man. So do you have all your clients like tracking macros via some app or something?
Yeah, yeah. I usually have things over a spreadsheet, but if they use an app, it's up to them usually.
Yeah, it's tracking macros is low hanging fruit too, man. People have no clue what they're consuming and they don't want to have to track because it seems like insurmountable obstacles and just inconvenient. But once you do it and you're consistent with it and you figure out what foods you like and what your body responds well to, tracking and manipulating within a relatively tight margin is pretty effortless. It's like brushing your teeth or whatever. I mean, it's just part of the day and it doesn't really require any additional bandwidth whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of it, if you're smart with food choices, not 100% of it has to make it on the scale, right? Like maybe only your carb portions, right? Or if you've already weighed out your protein when you've made it, if you're cooking in batches, and then once your meals are all together, it's like it's mindless, like you said. Um, Yeah, it's a lot easier than I think people really think. If they give it a try, they find it's a lot easier. It's like it starts out a little bit harder. There's an adjustment that's required for sure, but then you gain momentum and it gets easier and easier.
Totally. Well, I'm excited for you, man. I'm proud of you. Your freaking show season this year knocked it out of the park. I'm excited for you to potentially be doing a prep in 2027. Because I think I told you this backstage too at my show. It's like, man, if you rewind the clock back to the 80s, like this is what people did. Like everybody was friendly with one another, but then they like planned on ripping each other's heads off on stage. But it was like a positive thing. There was camaraderie there, and like there was some hype. And I feel like natural bodybuilding would benefit from that if we're all running the same circles, we're all building each other up, we're all wanting each other to be the very best version of themselves possible. Because I mean, when you and I compete against each other in 2027, I want to beat the best version of you. Like I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want you to not bring your A game, and vice versa. Like I want us to all just level up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same exact way, man. I'm the same exact way. Um, yeah. That
So it'll be good,
competitive
man.
nature for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you're taking, next year off. A lot of people, especially I think more so newcomers into the sport, they like try to compete every single year. And it's like, I mean, if you did a 30+ week prep, my last prep was 33 weeks, like that's the majority of the year in a deficit to some extent. So like it takes longer to build muscle than it does to lose body fat. And if you're spending most of the time losing body fat, then you're not building any muscle. You're going to look worse and worse every year if you compete every year.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's always been like every other year, and
Hmm.
I think I probably could have given myself more time between seasons, and it you know benefited me for sure. Um, I also like having shorter off seasons to an extent, knowing that okay, you can't really have much of a layoff, right? You kind of have
Hmm.
to take care of business, and you really have to stay focused, and it makes each session feel a bit more important, at least in my mind. And all right, so this time next year, I'm going to be in prep. So this session has to happen. We have to progress. We have to really, nail our sleep, nail our recovery. And so, like each training week, it adds up and it starts to mean a lot more. Whereas I'll go in, 4 years, 5 years, or whatever, and it's easy to kind of slack off at that point in time. So that's personally why I do it. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like competing every year is definitely not the best long-term decision. I think some people can pull it off like at the very, very end of their career where, you're not building a whole lot. But yeah, it still would be better if you gave yourself more time.
And then for me, like I'm always, the feedback I always get's always to add more size. So it's like, man, if I'm going to add more size, I can't afford to not take a longer off season.
Right, right.
You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
I get that Baba quad sweep on my legs too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome, brother. Where do people go to find out more about you and dive deeper into your world, man?
So I guess the best place would be beyondbodybuilding.com. We have a bunch of written articles, resources you could find, application for coaching if you're interested. My social media handle, pretty much on every platform, is my name is just clipped. So Josh, the letter T, and then Brad, Josh T. Brad.
Awesome, brother. Well, I will link out, make it easy for people to find you. Congrats again on getting the manuscript accepted as well.
Thank you, sir.
And keep me in the loop, man. When you start prepping, even, I mean, shoot, even during the off season, man, like, let's just keep in touch, keep the conversation going, and keep pushing each other, brother.
Yeah, definitely, man. And likewise, I appreciate it.
You bet, man. And hopefully, if you do a show in 2027, because you got your pro card, I got to follow up with this, but I'm pretty sure if you got the pro card at my show in Classic, you could compete in another amateur. You could compete in my show in 2027 as an amateur in bodybuilding, technically,
Yeah,
right?
technically, yeah.
So, might not be a bad warm up show for you.
Double up, right?
Awesome, brother. Well, keep killing it, Josh. We'll keep in touch, man.
All right. Thanks, man. You're killing it too.
Likewise. Take care.
All right. Later.